The Poetic and Prophetic Books. 9. Obadiah Jonah Micah Nahum. Obadiah 585 BCE. The prophecy of Obadiah is compromised in the shortest book in what is called the Old Testament, consisting of a single chapter of only 21 verses. We have no account of the man and can only judge concerning him by what we gather from his brief writings. He probably prophesied about 585 BCE, or in some time between the destruction of Jerusalem and the overthrow of Edom. So much is evident from the fact that while he predicts the latter, and indeed makes it the main subject of his prophecy, he alludes to the indifference, or perhaps the practical sympathy with the enemy, which was manifested in Edom in the time of Jerusalem's calamity. Verses 11 through 14. For this, among the wickedness of Edom, he declares her overthrow by the same power which laid Judah low. The most remarkable passage is the closing one, the author's opinion, in which the prophet announces the future glory of Jerusalem or Mount Zion and the great prosperity of God's people, thus doubtless figuring the spiritual triumph of the Church of Christ. And has it really improved the character? Christian nations tend to have, the highest crime rates in any real regard are among Christian nations. Despair, unsatisfactoriness with life, even the impoverished nations, if they're not Christian majorities, actually tend to do better. So, people dying all over the place, and people are more content and stuff. So I don't, so how's that true? Jonah, 862 BCE, this prophet, but look at Jerusalem, means something, the city of peace. Mount Zion, the exemplar sort of thing, the shining example mountain. So you can look at this symbolically. Jonah, 862 BCE, this prophet, though the fifth in the order of arrangement of the minor prophets, appears to have lived and exercised his sacred office many years before any of the others. We find the first mention of his name in the time of Jeroboam the second, king of Israel, where he prophesies the restoration of certain extensive territories which had been wrested from the kingdom by neighboring nations. 2 Kings 14:25. A few ancient writers maintain that he was the son of the widow of Zarephath, who was miraculously restored by Elijah. And in Aramea, he'd probably, I don't know the spelling. Is it or is it just plain Z? But the last one's probably just plain T. Zarephath, perhaps, who was miraculously restored by Elijah. Others have attempted to identify him with the young man of the sons of the prophets sent to anoint Jehu, but these are evidently fanciful conceits having only the slenderest foundation of a conjecture. Now, a lot of these things are more historical than the Bible account, but, they're side accounts that weren't in the Bible. Talmudic, some of that, you got to look at perhaps something older. The book is mainly a narrative of the prophet's experience when sent on a special religious mission and the concomitants and consequences, rather than the ordinary utterances of the prophetic mind. The extraordinary supernaturalisms embodied in the book have made it the object of infidel assault and much profane wit. well, perhaps they weren't infidels, they just didn't agree with your interpretation or believe in it as you believed in it. But they are chiefly based on false conceptions of the facts which, though remarkable, are in no sense contradictory or inconsistent. The character of Jonah attracts attention by reason of such unexpected weakness in a chosen messenger of the Lord, and by Lord they don't mean anything it translates as Lord, but God is a noun and verb, sent on a solemn and important errand. Yet a charitable consideration of the circumstances will lead to some mitigation of our condemnation, though not to a very high estimate of the prophet's character. Micah 756 to 970. 756 to 697 BCE. Of this prophet, very little is known. He appears to have been contemporary with Isaiah, Hosea, and Amos, and perhaps others of the minor prophets. It is probable that the utterances of which his book is composed were made during the latter part of the period usually assigned to him are about 720 to 710 BCE. The subjects are of the same general character with most of the prophecies of this period. They contain warnings concerning the national wickedness and threatenings of punishment, together with somewhat indefinite yet confident predictions of the messianic times and triumphs. The prediction concerning the precise place of Christ's birth as the most important and remarkable of his utterances, and was accepted by the Jewish rabbis and doctors as conclusive, but it still doesn't presage the Christian doctrine. It was on the authority of this prediction that the announcement of the place was made to Herod. The book appears to have 3 divisions, each marked at the beginning by a formal exhortation, hear ye, each also commencing with rebukes and threatenings and ending with a promise. Nahum, I forget, is it Nahum or something? 713 BCE. Of Nahum's personal history, no more is known than of Micah. Perhaps the 2 prophets were contemporary, and that they exercised the office at the same time, yet the subjects are widely different, as were doubtless the places of their birth. It is thought by the most reliable authorities that Nahum was a native of Galilee, and that, maybe Nahum fulfilled the prophecy, right? And that when the captivity of the 10 tribes began, he escaped to Judea and was in Jerusalem at the time of the Syrian invasion under Sennacherib. The appalling and miraculous catastrophe of the invasion and the destruction of the army were perhaps the occasion when the Spirit moved him to prophesy against Nineveh, the renowned and mighty capital of the Syrian Empire. This is the subject of the book and is treated in a bold, fervid, and eloquent manner. Of the literal fulfillment of these predictions in the destruction of Nineveh about a century later, there is abundant evidence. The discoveries made during the present century by Layard and others among the ruins of the buried and for ages forgotten city confirm the correctness of the prophet's vivid descriptions. And doesn't it disprove a couple items of the story in the Bible? What peculiarity is there about the book of Obadiah, and at what time did he prophesy, and against what particular city? Now, again and again, most of the account is proved to be true, but certain aspects. So how do you know what's true and what's not if we keep saying this? Of what does he accuse the Edomites? Verse 11 through 12. What vision of the future glory of Israel is set forth, and to what does it probably have reference? Verse 17, 18, and 21. What is there remarkable about the time and place of Jonah in relation to the other minor prophets? What are some of the not very probable traditions concerning him? What mention is of him do we find in Hebrew history? Give the main facts of the narrative. What are some of the obvious statements of the prophet's character, elements of the prophet's character? What can be said of the prophet Micah? About what time did he prophesy, and who were his contemporaries? Some of the prominent topics of the book. How are the 3 divisions marked? Some of the accusations and threatenings against Israel and Judea. 1, 6, 7, 9, 2, 2 and 4, 3, 1 through 4. What more prosperous conditions are predicted after the judgments? 4, 1 and 2. What